Namaste. Hello everyone. Welcome to Shal Gulhati, Shiva and Mysticism for another episode of Monday with Mahadev. Last time I spoke to you about a modern term, GPS, which is actually a gadget used for navigation, and its full form is Global Positioning System. And I tried to collate it with the science of God and devotion to Him, saying that God also has a system which is God's positioning system. And this week I am back with another modern term for you, and we will try to collate it to Bhakti. And this is a gaming term. Some of you who have played golf would be very familiar with this phrase, which is double or quits. In the golf course, there are usually 18 holes, and one player plays against another, or two play against two. And to make the game more interesting, they put a little wager money in it. So let's say they put 10 rupees per hole or $10 per hole. And then that money doesn't have to be paid after each hole, because that would become cumbersome and it would spoil the game, the rhythm of the game. So they usually keep a little pad and they note down all the scores. Now at the 18th hole, when we have played 17 and this is the last hole, the game is coming to an end, someone usually pipes up and says, "Guys, double or quits?" What that means is that for the last hole, we will not put a wager money of 10 rupees a hole. We will, let's say, count all the losses of the losing team, which may be, say, 150 rupees. They have been losing consistently. They've lost, 15 holes out of 17. And therefore, the last hole will not be played for 10 rupees. It will be played for 150 rupees. So the loser has a chance to make it quits, and he doesn't have to pay anything. And the winner has a chance to make his winning double. Instead of 150 rupees, he will now earn 300 rupees. And in the game of cards, also there is something similar. Those of you who have played cards with wager money, and you need not be a gambler to have done that. In Hinduism, we have a great pratha, a tradition of playing cards during Diwali days with our family or very close friends, even with the children who are grown up and the uncles and aunts. And we put a little wager money to make the game a little more interesting. And we note that if we played for 2 or 3 hours at a stretch, and then the lady of the house says, dinner is served, and someone has been losing a lot, and then again someone pipes up and says, let's play a double or quits hand, which means let's raise the stake. If we have been playing 10 rupees a hand, let's raise it to maybe 100 rupees. And the same thing happens. Someone who's been losing can make up his loss and quit. And someone who's been winning, if he wins that hand as well, if he wins the last hand, the full game, he will double his earnings. So how do we collate this sort of wager for making fun or having better fun, making the game more fun? How would we collate this with a noble thing like Bhakti and God? Now, in Bhakti, there are 2 R's: relationship and responsibility. And they are both incumbent on the bhakta, both dependent on you. I spoke to you in an earlier video about the great Kashmiri saint Abhinav Gupta, who sorted this out about free will or destiny. Are we destined to be Mahadev's favorites, or is it our free will? And he said, in the beginning, there is a pratham spand, a primal grace, a pratham anugrah, which comes from Shiva, and which is that he chooses you to be his bhakt. And this he does by looking into a timeless record of your life, your previous life, and your bhakti. And after he chooses you, he leaves it to you to respond to him or not. Whether you show bhakti for him, he may have given you a sign, he may have come to you in a dream, you may have opened a newspaper and read a beautiful article and felt very drawn, or sometimes a saint may have come to you and told you about him and you are enchanted and you want to go. So he has done his anugraha, he has given a sign, and now he waits for you to respond. And if you don't respond, maybe he gives you another sign, and if you don't still respond, he gives you yet another sign. But this cannot go on endlessly. Ultimately, if you never respond, you will miss the bus. On the other hand, if you take your responsibility for your relationship to God and handle it without any interference, no one is responsible other than you for your relationship. Even the saint who comes and reminds you of God doesn't walk your trek for you. You have to walk your trek for yourself. So, no one can really interfere in your relationship with God. And you cannot give an excuse, so and so didn't want me to do it. Like in the case of Meera, the great saint who came from a royal family of Rajasthan and got married into another region. She came from Marwar, she got married into Mewar, and she was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, and the family she got married into was not approving of this. But she kept her relationship, she knew her responsibility, and she kept on. And therefore, she went on to become the greatest bhakt in the Shiromani, in the Hall of Fame. When we talk of Lord Krishna, the name of Meera has to come up. Therefore, she kept her own relationship by understanding her own responsibility. So she did not miss the bus. She entered the Hall of Fame. She doubled. She didn't quit. And we have another example. There was a lady called Savitri whose husband died, and she did so much of tapasya with his body in her lap that even Yamraj, the god of death, had to concede and say, your devotion to your God, your love for your husband is so much that even I have to give in. So, on the one hand, if we allow someone else to interfere in our relationship to the extent that we say, well, my husband or my father or my son or so and so or my best friend didn't want me to, have so much of devotion, this happens. But you miss the bus, they don't miss the bus. On the other hand, if you have done your bhakti and your tapasya so well, God has this game of double and quits. He doesn't only give you a pass into the Hall of Fame. He can be so pleased with you that, like in the case of Savitri, he can say, well, here's your pass for the Hall of Fame or for the bus, and here's another one for you. You can get anybody you want. Our rishis and munis have always known this. We have to trek our own trek for spiritual gain. And on the other side, if someone has so much of attainment that they have actually got a couple of extra passes, they have doubled their attainment, their spiritual attainment, they can hand it out to their loved ones. There are examples of this. So if we keep our relationship, if we remember our responsibility, we can double our gain in even spirituality. Because this is the double or quits of God's game. he allows you to use your spiritual tapasya to be able to carry even your loved ones with you. So, this was my collation of the double or quits gaming term with the subtle understanding that our bhakti should not become quits because of someone else, regardless of who that person is, but that if we double it, we can carry them along as well. I hope you liked this collation. I'll be here with you next Monday. Join me again. Om Namah Shivaya.